Welcome to Thailand Shorts, Key Concepts. For this first episode, there is really only one place to start. If you want to understand how power and politics really worked in ancient Thailand, the lived, contested, and sometimes magical reality of it, you need to understand one word, Mandala, or in Thai, Monton. This word comes from Sanskrit, and it means, at its most basic level, circle. But it's a circle in three quite different senses. Cosmologically, it's the rings of continents surrounding Mount Meru, the central mountain of the universe. Ritually, it's the powerful circle drawn in magic, a space that pushes power outward while keeping threats at bay. And politically, it's the circle that conceptualizes a kingdom. Until quite recently, the rulers of Southeast Asia didn't see these concepts, cosmology, magic, and political power, as separate ideas. They all operated at the same time. The king's capital was understood as a kind of Mount Meru, with his authority rippling outward in rings, getting weaker the further you got from the centre, but with no hard edge where it simply stopped. This meant that power wasn't about controlling territory as we might imagine it today. It was about managing relationships. An ambitious ruler had to juggle two things simultaneously, keeping his existing allies and subordinates in line, while pushing his power outward towards the new neighbours he wanted to bring under his influence. He'd use military force when necessary, diplomacy when he could, and above all, marriage, lots of them. Kinship networks were one of the most effective tools available, binding neighbouring rulers to the centre through personal and dynastic ties that were much harder to break than military conquest alone. And because kings back then had large harems with perhaps hundreds of wives, this was an excellent way of binding networks together. And here's the catch. The process never really ended, extending out across a large and unbounded geography. Every new neighbour absorbed simply revealed the next ring of neighbours beyond them, and so power was always either expanding or shrinking, never fixed, never truly centralised, always in motion. It is a system of power that one scholar, Stanley J. Tambiah, has described as a galactic polity. For Tambiah, the galactic polity was essentially a solar system in political form. At the centre sat the king's capital, exercising direct control over its immediate territory. Around it orbited a first ring of provinces, governed by princes or officials appointed by the king himself. Beyond that, a further ring of more independent tributary polities, satellites that acknowledge the centre's dominance but retain their own autonomy. What makes this theorisation so powerful is the observation that every lesser unit is a reproduction of the larger one. A provincial governor ruled his territory the way the king ruled his kingdom. A tributary chief organised his polity the way the governor organised his province. Power didn't just radiate outward, it was replicated at every level. And crucially, like a solar system, this was never a fixed or static arrangement. The whole constellation was always either expanding or shrinking, depending on the strength of the centre. Satellites could drift closer or further away. The king's challenge was constantly keeping them in orbit. So the next time you look at a mandala, whether it's painted on a temple wall, drawn in a ritual, or mapped across the kingdoms of ancient Southeast Asia, remember that you're not just looking at a beautiful geometric pattern. You're looking at a complete theory of how the universe is ordered, how magic works, and how kings ruled. All in one circle.